This is the story of Amara, not the gentle Amara, not the kind one, but the beautiful one. The one whose face the whole village admired and whose tongue the whole village feared. She had a way of speaking that could cut like a knife and smile like a gift at the same time. On the morning everything changed. The market of Ugbeke was full and loud. Women called out prices. Children chased chickens between the stalls. And in the middle of all that noise, a blind old man appeared at the edge of the crowd, his walking stick tapping the ground slowly, his empty gourd held forward. "Please," he said in a voice dry as harmattan dust. "Water. Just a little water." Nobody moved. Eyes dropped. Heads turned away. And then Amara, standing at her stall with her finest wrapper tied and her neck high, looked at this man and made a decision that would change the rest of her life. She laughed. Not a small laugh. A loud one. The kind that makes everyone around you either join or go very quiet. "Look at this one." The laughter faded fast. That is the thing about cruel laughter, my people. It has a short life, but a long shadow. The women near Amara's stall shifted their feet and looked away. Even those who had laughed with her stopped quickly, because something in the air had changed. The blind man did not shout. He did not cry. He simply turned his clouded eyes in the direction of Amara's voice, and the market went so quiet you could hear the river in the distance. "You have water," he said calmly. "But your heart is dry. And a heart that dry cannot give life." Amara sucked her teeth. "Old man, go and find your people." He raised one hand. Not in anger. Almost gently. "The womb that refuses kindness," he said, "may one day shelter what kindness fears." He lowered his hand and turned. He walked away slowly, his stick tapping, and the crowd parted for him the way water parts for something it does not want to touch. Amara hissed. "Spirit nonsense," she said, arranging her goods again. "Let him go." But the women around her did not laugh. She turned back to her stall and told herself the old man meant nothing at all. The next morning the village was talking, the way Ugbeke always talks, not in one place, but everywhere at once. At the river, at the grinding stone, at the compound gates. "The man she mocked," they said, "is not ordinary." Someone claimed they had seen him in 3 different villages on the same day. Someone else said he had once cured a woman's dying child with only river water and a word. An elder said he had heard, from those older than himself, that such men walk the earth testing hearts. Amara heard all of it. She was not afraid. She had been beautiful her whole life, and beautiful women in Ugbeke were not used to the world punishing them for small things. "Old men talk nonsense," she told her friend Gozi. "And frightened people believe everything." Gozi said nothing, which meant she disagreed. But she was a quiet woman and Amara was not the kind of person you disagreed with loudly. Still, something small and cold had lodged itself in Amara's chest since the market. She noticed it at night when the compound was quiet. A feeling like a footstep in an empty room. She pressed her hand to her chest and told herself it was nothing. By morning she had convinced herself. When Ugbeke came to ask for Amara's hand, the whole village nodded like they had been expecting it. He was a hunter, broad-shouldered, respected, with 3 storage barns full of dried meat and a compound that sat on the best land near the river. For a woman like Amara, it felt like proof. Proof that her beauty was worth more than any beggar's warning. The marriage was celebrated with drums that carried 3 villages away. Amara wore red and gold. She danced without looking at the ground, the way confident women do. The whole of Ugbeke came to eat. Ugbeke watched her from across the fire with proud eyes. That night, they returned to his compound and the celebrations grew quieter. The fire outside burned low. The guests found their sleeping mats. And Amara, lying on her new sleeping mat in her husband's hut, listened to the silence of her new life and found it good. Then the silence changed. It was slight, the way a smell changes in a room when something enters it. She had almost slipped into sleep when she heard it. Faint. Rhythmic. A sound that was not the wind, not the insects, not the distant river. She told herself it was a bush snake drawn by the wetting food. She told herself it was the dry grass settling outside the hut wall. By morning she had told herself so many things that the hissing seemed small and the memory of the beggar's words seemed smaller. And then, 1 week later, she discovered she was pregnant. My people, if you have seen how a village celebrates a pregnancy, you know what happened next. Amara walked through Ugbeke and the world softened around her. Women came to her compound with yam and palm soup. Elders prayed over her doorpost. Chukwamika would not let her carry a bucket that was even half full. She held her belly in the evenings and sang, and for those weeks she was the happiest she had ever been. The warning, the beggar, the hissing on her wedding night, all of it seemed like a foolish dream from another life. She was full now, and real, and loved. On a quiet afternoon at the end of her 2nd month, she fell asleep against the outer wall of the hut where the sun was warm. And she dreamed. In the dream the ground beneath her was moving. After that dream, small things changed. The chickens in the compound stopped coming near her. This is the kind of thing a person can explain. Chickens are strange creatures. They scatter for reasons no one understands. But then the goats began to pull at their ropes when she passed, their eyes white and rolling. The compound dog, old and slow and afraid of nothing, began to whimper when she sat outside. Amara noticed all of it. She did not speak of it. She was a proud woman and proud women do not speak of things that might make people pity them. But she noticed. And she began to feel, deep in the heaviness of her pregnancy, a sensation that she could not put words to. Not pain. Not exactly. More like awareness. Like something inside her that was also aware of her. She pressed her palm against her belly one night and felt it press back, but not the soft push of a baby's foot. Something slow and deliberate. She pulled her hand away. She sat in the dark and did not call for her husband. She sat very still for a long time. But the feeling stayed, low and patient, like an ember refusing to go out. At her 4th month, Amara went to find the midwife. Mama Naji had delivered half the children in Ugbeke, and her hands were the most trusted hands in the village for this kind of work. She was an old woman who smelled of herbs and never wasted words. Amara sat before her. Mama Naji placed her hands on the belly, and then removed them. She placed them again, slowly. Then she stood and wiped her palms on her wrapper, which is not something she had ever done before after touching a pregnancy. Mama Naji, Amara said. What do you feel? The old woman looked at the wall for a moment. Then she said, I will send you to someone who knows more than me. And she picked up her bag and left. She had not looked Amara in the eye once. Amara sat alone in the room. The silence pressed close around her. She could feel the thing inside her moving. The slow, deliberate movement she had been pretending was just a baby finding position. She pressed her palms flat on her knees. It is nothing, she said out loud, to the empty room. But the empty room did not agree. The nights grew worse. Chukwamika began to wake at sounds Amara could no longer pretend were ordinary. They would lie side by side in the dark and the hissing would come, sometimes from the walls, sometimes from below the sleeping mat, sometimes from directly inside the hut where nothing could be hiding. He held his lamp up more than once and searched the corners. He found nothing. But a man who finds nothing in the dark is not always comforted by that. He began to sit up at night. He began to watch his wife sleeping with the careful eyes of someone trying to understand something his mind did not want to understand. One night, Amara turned in her sleep and the lamplight fell across her belly. Chukwamika stared. He did not move for a long time. Then he leaned slightly closer, the lamp trembling in his hand. Beneath the cloth, beneath the stretched skin of his wife's stomach, there was movement. The kind that a sleeping child might make, turning and settling, except this movement did not stop. It shifted and coiled and shifted again, slow and continuous, like something patient practicing the art of waiting. Chukwamika sat back on his heels. He set the lamp down carefully. When her labor came, it came on a hot afternoon with no warning. The women of the compound gathered fast, the way women do. Someone ran for Mama Naji and was told she was not available. so they found 2 other women instead, older women who had seen many labors and were not easily frightened. They built a fire. They boiled water. They settled Amara on the delivery mat. She held the wooden post above her head and breathed the way she had been told to breathe. Everything felt almost normal. The pain was real, the women's voices were steady, the afternoon light came through the window in long orange strips. Then the sounds began. Not from Amara. From the mat. A hissing that rose under the voices in the room. The 2 women looked at each other. They said nothing. They focused. The labor progressed. Amara pushed and cried out, and the women leaned forward, and then the first woman screamed and fell backward into the wall. The second woman did not scream. She simply stood up and walked out of the hut without looking back. Outside, the compound went silent. Then a sound rose from the women who had waited outside, not a scream, but something worse. The village came, the way a village comes to something it cannot ignore, slowly at first, then all at once. They stood outside the hut and they looked, and then they stopped looking and stared at the ground. Inside, Amara lay on the mat. She was not crying. She had passed the place where crying lives. She stared at the ceiling with the eyes of someone who has seen something that has rearranged the inside of their mind. The compound around her had gone completely still. Ugbeke came to the doorway finally. He stood there. He looked inside. He looked at his wife on the mat. He looked at the floor where the women's buckets had been overturned. He stood for a very long time without speaking. Then he said in a voice that had very little feeling left in it, "You cannot stay here." Amara did not argue. She had no argument left. She had no pride left either. Pride is a heavy thing, and she had set it down somewhere during those long minutes on the mat, and she did not know where it had gone. Some of the villagers outside spoke of witchcraft. Some said she had brought a curse from her own family. She walked until the village sounds fell away behind her and the path narrowed into the forest edge. She had nowhere to go. Her own family's compound was 2 days away, and she did not have the strength for 2 days. She did not have the strength for 2 hours. She sat down at the base of a great tree whose roots spread out like fingers across the ground, and she held herself there. Her body ached in the particular way of a woman who has given birth, but there was no child. There was only pain and the knowledge of what the pain had produced. She sat there as the afternoon became evening. The forest around her was alive with small sounds, leaves, birds, the far-off movement of the river. None of it was frightening in the way a forest is frightening at night. It felt, strangely, like a waiting room. Like the trees already knew she was coming, and had arranged themselves accordingly. She pressed her back against the great tree's trunk and closed her eyes. She had been a proud woman her whole life. Pride is the kind of thing that keeps you standing even when your legs are gone, but she was past even that now. She must have slept, because when she opened her eyes the light had changed and there was someone in front of her. Not threatening, just there. An old woman, sitting on one of the great tree's roots as naturally as if she had always been there. She was small and dry and still, with a face that had so many years in it you stopped trying to count them. A fire no bigger than 2 fists burned near her feet, though Amara had not heard it being lit. "You are cold," the old woman said. It was not a question. She held out a clay bowl of something warm. Amara took it without thinking, and only after she had drunk from it did she realize she had never done that before, taken food from a stranger without examining it, without pride. She sat with the empty bowl in her hands. "What happened to you?" the old woman said. "Is not an accident." Amara looked up at her. "I know what you carry," the woman continued. "And I know how it began." Amara's hands tightened around the bowl. "There was a man," she said finally. "A blind beggar." The old woman looked at the small fire. She did not look surprised. Amara told her. She did not exaggerate, and she did not reduce it. She told it plainly, the way you tell something when you are too tired for anything except the truth. The old woman listened. She did not judge with her face. She simply listened until the words ran out. Then she was quiet for a long moment. The small fire crackled between them, That man, the old woman said finally, does not come from where ordinary men come from. He walks the earth like a farmer walks a field, testing the soil. He is a guardian of the unseen law. When you mocked him, you were not mocking a man. You were mocking the law itself. Amara was quiet. So the curse is real, she said. Not a question. The curse is a mirror, the old woman said. What you see in it is what was already inside you, the refusal to give, the closed heart, the womb of cruelty. It has only been made visible. Amara pressed her hands together. Can it be lifted? Only by the one who placed it. The beggar. Yes. The fire shifted and a piece of wood fell quietly into ash. But there is a road between you and him, the old woman said. The old woman spoke slowly and Amara listened the way she had never listened to anything in her life. You will find him, the woman said, but not by rushing. The guardian does not appear to the one who is searching for herself. He appears to the one who has stopped looking for herself and started looking for others. Amara frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means you must perform what you refused him, and you must do it not once, as payment, but again and again, without pride, without announcement, without expectation of reward. Each true act of kindness will weaken what lives inside you. Each false one, each act done for the appearance of goodness, will make it stronger. Inside Amara's belly, something moved. A slow, coiling shift, as if whatever lived there had heard and wanted her to know it was listening. She pressed her hand against herself. How will I know the difference? She asked. Between true and false? The old woman almost smiled. You already know. You have always known. The hard part was never knowing. The hard part was caring. She handed Amara a small cloth bundle. Amara gripped the small bundle and prepared to walk into whatever came next. Amara walked. This is what the road looks like for a woman like Amara, my people, not the road you walk with your head high, and your wrapper neat, and the village watching. This road was red dust and tree roots, and the particular silence of the forest at midday when even the birds have gone quiet. Her feet were not accustomed to uneven ground. She had always lived on the smooth paths of a woman who is carried by admiration. This ground did not admire her. On the second afternoon she came to a place where the path bent near a shallow stream. A young child, perhaps 4 years old, perhaps 5, sat at the stream's edge crying. Not the crying of a hurt child. The crying of a lost one. Amara stopped. Her first thought, before she could stop it, was to keep moving. She had her own problems. She had her own road. She had things inside her that she was trying to rid herself of, and stopping for lost children was not in the plan the old woman had described. And then she stopped thinking. She simply knelt. She asked the child what was wrong. The child pointed somewhere through the trees. She did not celebrate the quietness. She did not allow herself to feel it as victory, because she understood now, in the way you understand a fire after you have been burned, that pride was the root of all of this. Pride was what had turned her mouth into a weapon at the market. Pride was what had made her laugh at a man who only wanted water. So she kept walking. The eastern river path was longer than she had expected. On the 4th day she came to a wide stretch of water where a rough rope bridge crossed to the other side. Standing at the bridge's edge was an old man, very old, his back bent so low his walking stick was the only thing keeping him from the ground. He had a bundle on his back that was clearly too heavy for him. He was looking at the bridge the way people look at things they are afraid of but have decided to attempt anyway. Amara crossed first. She carried herself to the other side. She put down her own bundle. Then she came back across the bridge for his. She carried both bundles across while he made the crossing slowly, one hand on the rope. By the 7th day she had almost nothing left. The dried food from the old woman's bundle was gone. She had shared portions of it at 2 separate points on the road, once with a woman who had children and no food, once with a group of young men who were not begging but were visibly hungry. Each time she had given, something had eased inside her. Each time she had checked herself. Was she giving to feel good about giving? Was she giving to hurry the curse along? And when she caught that thought, she waited, and then gave anyway, because the hungry people in front of her were real regardless of her reasons. On the 7th evening she sat against a rock at the edge of a clearing, her stomach empty, her legs past the point of complaining. A family of travelers came through the clearing, a man, a woman, and 2 small children. They had food and offered to share it. Amara refused at first, then accepted, because refusing out of pride was the same beast wearing a different face. She sat with them, ate a small portion, and told them she was heading toward the riverside village. She moved faster now, though her body did not thank her for it. The news of the beggar had done what hunger and exhaustion could not. It had lit something in her chest that made the distance feel smaller than it was. She asked everyone she passed. A woman washing cloth at a stream said she had seen him yesterday, heading east. A young man on a bicycle said he had given the old man water, and this Amara heard with a feeling she did not have a word for, something between relief and shame. Others were giving him water now. Others were doing what she had refused. She moved along the river path as the afternoon heat fell away and the evening light turned the water gold. She tried to prepare herself for what she would say. What do you say to someone you have wronged when the wrong has grown so large that words seem like very small containers for it? She had mocked him in front of a crowd. She had laughed at his blindness. She had called his suffering entertainment. And he had answered her not with anger, but with a truth that had since hollowed out everything she thought she was. She stopped 10 steps from him. He was thinner than she remembered. Even smaller. His stick lay across his knees and his head was slightly bowed, the way old people bow when they are tired in a way that sleep no longer fixes. She had expected something. Dread, perhaps. Or a sign. Lightning, voices, the earth shifting. But there was only the river beside them, moving quietly, and the evening birds, and the old man sitting under his tree in the ordinary way that people sit when they are waiting for something they have accepted is coming. "I know your voice," he said without looking up. He had not heard her approach, the grass was soft, but he spoke as if he had been expecting her for some time. Amara stayed where she was. "You remember me," she said. It was not a question. "I remember all of them," he said. "The ones who pass the test and the ones who do not." He was quiet for a moment. "You did not pass." "No," she said. "I did not." The words came out of her slowly at first, then all at once, like water that has waited too long behind a dam. She told him everything. Not just the apology, the whole shape of it. She told him what she had felt when she laughed, and why she had laughed, and what she understood now that she had not understood then. She told him about the labor. She told him about Chukwemeka's face in the doorway. She told him about walking out of the compound with no one saying her name with softness. She told him about the old woman in the forest and the road and the child at the stream and the old man at the bridge and the travelers in the clearing. She told him she had given water to a thirsty child and felt something leave her body. She told him she had shared her last food knowing it would cost her the next day, and she had done it anyway, not because she was good but because she was trying to learn what goodness requires. She kept her face down while she spoke. When she finished, the silence that came after was long and complete. The river moved beside them. Anal called once from far away. "Words cannot heal what pride wounded," the beggar said quietly. Amara nodded. She had expected this. She stayed on her knees. He told her plainly, the way hard truths deserve to be told. "I am dying," he said. "Not from age. From the weight of what I carry. I have walked this earth for longer than this body was made to walk it. I have seen the worst of people and the best of people, and the weight of both has worn me through." He pressed a hand to his chest. "There is one thing that can restore what has been taken from me, a true giving, not of food or water or time, but of the life force itself. The kind of transfer that leaves the giver with less and the receiver with more." He turned his clouded eyes toward her. "I am not asking this of you. I am only telling you it is the condition. If you choose to give it, the last of what is inside you will leave. If you do not, you will still carry it, and it will not kill you, but it will stay. Amara looked at this man, old, thin, his breath coming in careful portions. She thought about what she had been before the market. She thought about the woman who had laughed at blindness. He instructed her to place her hands over his, palm to palm, and to close her eyes. He told her not to resist what she felt. "Whatever leaves you," he said, "let it go." Amara knelt before him in the grass at the river's edge and placed her palms against his. His hands were dry and light, like the husk of something that used to hold more weight. She closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing. Then a warmth began in her chest, not the warmth of an emotion, but something more physical, like heat moving through water. It traveled down her arms and into her palms, and she felt it pass from her into him, slow and steady, the way water moves downhill. And then she felt something else. Something inside her abdomen that had been constant for so long she had stopped noticing it. The awareness, the coiling, the slow patient movement, began to change. It shifted. It turned. And then, like a knot that has been held tight for so long that releasing it feels like loss, it let go. Amara exhaled. She felt it leave, not painfully, but completely, the way darkness leaves a room when a door opens. The warmth in her palms grew brighter. When Amara opened her eyes, the sky above the river had gone fully dark. Stars were out. The small fire that had appeared near them, she did not know when, lit the grass in a warm ring. The old man's hands were still beneath hers. But his breathing had changed completely. It was deep and even and full, the breathing of someone who has been given back something they were missing. She looked at his face. It had changed. Not in the way faces change with age or exhaustion, in the way a thing changes when it becomes what it always was. The old dry skin had not become young. But it was lit from within, the way certain stones look when you hold them up to a strong light. His clouded eyes opened. And they were not clouded anymore. They were clear and deep and looked at her with a fullness that she had never been looked at with before, not with admiration, not with desire, not with the kind of gaze she had always collected. This was different. It was the gaze of something that saw her completely, the way the earth sees what is planted in it. "You chose," he said. He turned to her and placed his hand on her head with the gentleness of something that has never been in a hurry. "What was taken from you is restored," he said. "What was inside you is gone. What you have walked through, the road, the hunger, the giving, that stays. It belongs to you. No one can take a road you have already walked." Amara knelt in the grass and felt things return to her body that she had not known were gone, a lightness in her chest, a quietness in her belly, a warmth that did not feel borrowed. She pressed her palms to her abdomen, and it was still. Completely still. Not the stillness of something waiting. The stillness of something healed. She stayed on the ground for a long time after he moved away from her. When she rose finally and looked toward where he had been standing, there was only the river and the trees and the stars, and a warmth in the air where he had stood, the way a fire leaves warmth after it has gone. She picked up her bundle. She found the river path. She did not look back. She walked toward Ugbeke with steady feet and a womb that was finally, completely quiet. "My people," she came back to Ugbeke on a morning when the market was just beginning to fill. She did not arrive with noise. She did not arrive with announcement. She simply appeared at the edge of the market the way the sun appears. You cannot name the exact moment it is there, but suddenly the light is different. People saw her and stopped. Some took a step back. Some gripped their wrappers. Because the last time they had seen Amara, she had walked out of her husband's compound like someone who had been broken and had not picked up the pieces. But this Amara was standing the way trees stand, not proud, not small, just fully in her own ground. The cruelty was gone from her face. Not replaced by sadness. Replaced by something that took people a moment to name, because they had never seen it on her before. Calm. Real calm. Not the performance of it. She went first to the spot at the market where the blind beggar had stood. She stood there for a long moment. Then she began to move through the market, and wherever she saw need she met it, not for applause, not for redemption, not even for herself.